This episode is brought to you by Saily.
Hi everybody. Yes, if I had a pound for every time I've lost internet access when I'm on holiday, I would literally have enough money to be on holiday permanently.
Yeah, you can't access your maps, you can't ring anyone for help, can't even tweet about the ordeal. It is a complete nightmare.
And in times like those, well, a local SIM would be an absolute lifesaver.
Well, that's exactly what Saily provides, an eSIM, which gives access to the internet in over 180 countries around the globe, and it also saves money on roaming fees.
It gives you a secure internet connection, which means you don't have to connect to a local Wi-Fi, which keeps you completely secure and safe as well.
Download Saily in your app store or by scanning the QR code on screen.
It's cool to have a QR code on the screen, isn't
Very.
it? And use the code RESTISENTERTAINMENT to get 15% off as well.
You can also find out the details in our episode description box.
Look at that QR code. It's tempting, isn't it?
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Rest is Entertainment Questions and Answers edition. I'm Marina Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman. Hello, Marina.
Hello, Richard. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Can we begin with Henry Kelly? The Going for Gold legend has died.
He has such an interesting career, Henry Kelly, because he came on our radar really when Game for a Laugh started.
I say our radar. No younger listeners will have heard anything about Game for a Laugh, but it was a sort of prank show.
Yes, and as always, hopefully this is an education of sorts. It was a prank show. Jeremy Beadle did it. Henry Kelly did it. Matthew Kelly, there's a wonderful actor, and Sarah Kennedy. And yeah, it was pranks, studio stunts. It was sort of, Anton Deck's Saturday Night Takeaway before its time. It was silly. But Henry Kelly is on this thing. It's where we first saw him, really. Then he went on to Going for Gold. But he had such an interesting story before then. He was a very, very serious journalist, Henry Kelly, in Northern Ireland. And there's a wonderful book he's written, was a very serious journalist, very, very, very...
During the Troubles.
During the Troubles. Very well respected, remained very well respected his entire life, but then decided to take this probably more lucrative career course into Game for a Laugh. And
hadn't he been a friend of Terry Wogan's, and that's why he just thought, oh, this is my way in, or, I'll have a go at that.
Well, I think he probably saw Terry Wogan's house.
Yeah.
And went, hold on a minute.
I
seem to be working quite a lot harder than Terry, and I don't have that sort of house. But, he was such a wonderful presence. Going for Gold was an interesting one, which used to be on every lunchtime, used to be on after Neighbours, that sort of absolute golden hour. And again, for pretty much all listeners, it was a pan-European quiz show. There's a number of contestants. They all came from different countries.
Yeah.
Obviously, the ones from Switzerland and France and whatever had to be absolutely fluent in English, as, Henry Kelly was asking questions about...
Yeah, it wasn't that international.
What the county town of Derbyshire was. He was really great. It had an amazing theme tune. So the theme tune...
belter. I've had it on the brain all week as a result of...
The theme tune was Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
The Oscar-winning composer, Hans Zimmer, did that theme tune. We listened to the full-length version, worth listening on Spotify. It's got verses you didn't know existed. Go for it for gold. And it's true.
I'd love to know the later verses of it.
The heat is on, the time is right.
Yeah.
It's time for you to play your game. Everyone's running. People are trying to be the best that they can when you're going for gold. So it had this amazing... We were listening to it in the car the other day, and Ingrid said, this must be the biggest difference between the portentousness of a theme tune and the quietness of an actual show. Because the show itself was, it's in a shed somewhere in, West London, like all these shows are. Henry was great. You're playing catch up. Who am I? All that stuff. You're in the 2 zone. And it was, listen, you can seek it out on YouTube. But Henry Kelly is fascinating when we think we know people, and, you got images of people from the television, and to know what he did before that light entertainment thing, and to know how respected he was. And I met him a few years ago when we did Point the Celebrities, and we chatted for about 20 minutes about all sorts of stuff, political stuff, all sorts of things. He was asking so many questions about things as well, and about writing. And, I thought he was terrific. And he had a wonderful sort of what you call a retirement for a light entertainment presenter, which is, classical radio and things like that, which he loved as well. But I would say a life well lived. He absolutely educated people. He was smart. He was brave. He was a great writer, and then he entertained people, and I loved that, and understood that those two things can exist side by side.
Well, that's what I think is the thing. And he just had a go at all sorts of different things and didn't think he was above or below anything. And I think that's quite unique in lots of ways.
I'd love to do a deep dive on Game for a Laugh one day.
Oh my God, I loved it so much.
It was just, you'd never seen anything like it.
It was. I would actually love to do that, but okay.
I remember there was a bit where, I mean, it was all like games and stunts and things like that, and someone had to do the game of putting their hand through a hole in a box and describe what it was that they could feel, and sometimes it was like spaghetti and sometimes it was worms, and then this woman had to put her hand through it and we could see what the things were, and it was Duncan Goodhue's head, and I thought, if TV is going to get any better than this, then I would be very, very surprised. To me, I mean, that's my The Sopranos.
Yeah.
It really is. But yeah, listen, Henry Kelly, R.I.P. and thank you for everything you did, and it's so lovely to have a career just spent, just being there and doing the thing that you want to do and doing it with such skill. Oh, this is a good question for you, Marina. Christian Alcorn. After recently reading articles from former contestants in shows such as Married at First Sight and The Apprentice, where they state they were made to look bad in the edit, can the people editing the footage really make a contestant look bad? We see them say the things they say, we see them act the way they act. Is the expression, "they made me look bad in the edit," really just covering up for behaviour they are embarrassed/ashamed of?
It's a very good question. That's, but I definitely, yes. First of all, absolutely, yes. They can give you what became to be known as the villain edit, and certain people in reality TV, and particularly in those early years, or what we think of as the early years of reality TV. In fact, it started much earlier, but in the sort of 2000s, they were so lawless, and people were made to look like real bad guys. I mean, you have to understand that even now when they're doing something like The Traitors, they don't edit the first part of the show. They have the round table and then they see who's going to be thrown, and then they edit the show to make that kind of, to make it fit with what they know is coming at the end. So to some extent, it's always artifice. We always,
and more importantly, they know what's happening at the entire end of the series as well. So they have an absolute idea of what everybody's journey is, how much we're going to see of them, when they're going to go. They understand all of those things, and they then have to construct a version of it that we're going to find understandable and believable. Yeah,
because even Fly on the Wall documentaries, that fly's got an edit suite, and it can actually work.
It's got 50 screens.
Yeah, it's got 50 screens. You've got to remember that when you're trying to put together one of those shows, in some ways, even in the early days when they were doing these things in the early 2000s, they were modelling them on what already existed, which were dramas. And so you thought, or sitcoms, you'd have maybe, this is quite a crass way of putting it, but it is the reality, the reality, an A plot, a B plot and a C plot. Even though it was done with real life, and it became clear that when it really worked, they were sort of aping the conventions of drama. And then reality and contestants and viewers did become very literate, and they'd be like, oh, she's going for the villain edit, because they thought, oh, it got them more screen time. Because then quite quickly, those really early, everyone always says, the first series of Big Brother is so different to anything else. The first series of Survivor is really different to anything else. The first series of all these things where people didn't know how to behave on that specific format and have ways of, Traitors is another example, they have ways of kind of getting it, and particularly wanting to get producers' attention. There's actually a memoir by a contestant on The Australian Bachelor, which is called The Villain Edit. And this is extraordinary. During filming, she thought, oh, hang on, I can see I'm not really seriously being considered as the person who's going to end up with this guy, because she'd had about 15 minutes with him. So she said, oh, I wanted to buy myself more episodes. No, fatal. So she started offering little quips about the castmates. She started doing these little acid asides, and she became a sort of funny, it was useful for the producers because you get, rather than them having to do a voiceover explaining what's happening, someone is offering that kind of editorializing of the action that's taking place.
Oh God, it's like a game show when one of the contestants describes the dilemma you've just put them in. You go, great.
Thank you so much. I don't have to say that out loud. Exactly. So, but it is a slippery slope from being the kind of funny narrator to getting the villain edit. And she did get it. And then somebody ended up saying to her, you're a bad person. And she really took it all to heart, the way she was, in her view, edited. Most people go away and let them in. She went back twice onto Bachelor in Paradise, deliberately seeking to say, I'm not that person I was portrayed as. She did get a more sympathetic edit, and the second time she went on it, she got a husband.
Wow.
Isn't
Did
that
she?
mad? Yeah.
That's great.
It's absolutely mad. But I have to say that in those early things, they had something that was called Frankenbites. This is so immoral, by the way. But in those lawless kind of, speaking of things, we've really got to do a special bonus episode on Mike Darnell. Oh my God, the absolute small evil genius of reality television. Truly a monster in so many ways, but in an entertaining one.
In the US. Yeah.
In the US. He had a show called Joe Millionaire, where they thought they were marrying a millionaire, but in fact, this guy was just a sort of Joe Schmo. They created this impression that this pair of them had gone into the woods and had oral sex. And she said something like, do you think it's easier if we lie down? And in fact, that was audio from much earlier in the week where someone had done a massage on one of, and editors sort of suddenly, once you shed your morality, it's quite easy to think, okay, well, I've done it once now. And it was called Frankenbites. And they would literally put words and make things completely different things. Reactions to one thing were made to seem like reactions to other things. And it was really, really immoral.
Which we have much less over here. I can't bear it if I'm watching a reality show over here and you see the cutaway of someone's reaction and you know it's not to the thing that just happened. That I just think is absolutely unacceptable in every way. Sometimes if you go on a TV show and they'll do it to you and you're just like, but I wasn't laughing at that. You can't show me laughing at that because it's not fair. And at the same time, if you're doing The Apprentice and someone sort of gives a side eye when someone said something, you think, I don't know if that side eye was to that, because I don't know how you've got those two cameras both on. I don't know how you've got like a one shot of that person and you've weirdly captured this thing. I think it's from somewhere else.
This is like the plot of broadcast news. Well, they're two cameras.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, as I say, over here it's much less so. When people come across as villains, it's because that's how they behaved. And people don't like to see themselves. It's quite hard if you're a certain type of human being and then you come up against people you never met before, and afterwards people go, I'm not sure you're the nicest person in the world. People don't really want to hear that about themselves. People don't really want to really confront their behaviours. You see it on The Apprentice all the time as well. And talking of that thing of all reality shows are edited backwards, but who's going to win. It's always worth those first 3 or 4 episodes of The Apprentice. You're always on episode 4, you go, wait, hold on a minute, who's Martin? I haven't seen him before. You think, no, you haven't seen him before because there's like 20 contestants in that, and they really have to cut in the people who are going to be in the boardroom in those first 3, and that's a lot of people. So the people who are going to go further in the process, you haven't seen them because their stories will start to emerge when there are fewer and fewer people. So if you have worked in that world, there are quite a lot of spoilers in those shows as to exactly how they're edited. It's hard not to know who's being voted out when you watch those shows, when you're watching
Except
the
that
edit.
one show, which I'm not going to say what it is or need the name of the contestant, but I spent the whole of the run of it saying to you, did that guy turn out to be a sex offender and they just can't get him out of the shots? Because I haven't heard him say one single thing.
Yeah.
I became upset. I started Googling to see if he'd been picked up for something because I honestly couldn't believe, and I know you know which one I'm talking about.
I do,
as far as I can
plenty
work
of people
out,
listen to this will
as far as I
remember
can
that
work
as well.
out, he wasn't a sex offender. I don't know what happened there, but anyway.
Something happened for sure.
Something happened there because I never saw him speak.
Yeah, they call that a purple edit, named after a character called Purple Kelly on, I think, season 12 of Survivor, when I think that was just, she wasn't particularly interesting, so she was edited around throughout. So now when a contestant is absolutely chopped out, they call it a purple edit.
Well, because you sometimes hear about actors going to see a movie and being so embarrassed to discover that at the premiere that they're actually not in it anymore and that someone's neglected to tell them. But on a reality show, that's quite a different kettle of fish. Like, well, I'm not in like 16 episodes of this thing. How?
You're just having to spot yourself in the background every now and again.
God, would I like to read her memoir? She's obviously quite boring, but I'd like Purple Kelly's memoir. Okay.
So sometimes I listen back to this podcast and it's all you, and I'm like, wait a minute.
I think it would be the other way around. Trust me, it would be the other way around.
But yeah, you can. These things are often edited like a drama, but by and large, it's quite hard to make someone seem awful if they're not awful. No,
but I do. But yes, But
in
those Wild West American shows of the noughties, it was 100% possible to do that, and people would just make offhand remarks, and the way they put it with the incidental music or the different reactions, things were cut from whole cloth, plot lines that just hadn't occurred. That doesn't happen here, and we actually have much more recourse to various bodies for complaint if you do feel something terrible.
People often come out and say, and it's weird because I talked a lot about X and they didn't put any of it in. You go, yeah, it was really boring. What do you want us to do?
Yeah.
We're not, there are certain
I'm
running...
making an entertainment show. Sorry if it's confusing.
Yeah,
Matt
yeah.
Hancock, I've gone on this to educate people about dyslexia on I'm a Celebrity.
Have you?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, Matt, but we didn't hear a lot about it.
What was the Farage thing when he said, this is how you get in the edit? That was
Oh,
that
yeah.
Was, that was Farage when he said, if you do a trial, you get 25% more airtime.
Yeah, well, he's very savvy on his edit.
Yeah.
We're delighted that Sky are once again proud partners of The Rest is Entertainment.
Sky's full of unmissable shows, including the brand new series, Season 3 of The White Lotus, which we have enjoyed very much indeed. We've spoken about it before on the show.
We love The White Lotus, and our regular listeners will remember we have talked about it on the main show before. Following the massive success of the first 2 seasons, The White Lotus Series 3 is already one of the most talked about TV events of the year.
Yeah, Jason Isaacs is in this new one. Amy Lee Wood from Sex Education is in it.
Walton Goggins.
Walton Goggins is amazing in it.
I love him so much. Patrick
Schwarzenegger, who plays the single most annoying character ever in the history of television. It's so
in
brilliant.
the history of White Lotus means something, but in the history of television, I agree. And the setting is absolutely gorgeous, as always. And of course, like all good TV series, Richard, it contains a murder.
Starts with a murder. You've got to start with a murder. Created by Mike White, luxury resort in Thailand. Even though there are murders and all sorts of things going on, like ratings and bookings have gone absolutely through the roof for that place. But we loved The White Lotus, all 3 seasons available on Sky right now.
Watch the brand new series of The White Lotus on Sky. Search Sky Stream or Sky Glass or visit sky.com to find out more.
Now, if you're actually a member of our AAA club, there's a Discord where people can ask questions and chat about television, all those sort of things. And this one, Richard, is from the Discord.
Okay.
It's about book signing. Snake in the Garden.
Real name.
Real name.
Do you know what? Before the edit, he was Butterfly in the Garden. And it's like, come on, man.
Give me a break. Richard has mentioned signing books for days and days around a launch, but his wife said to chuck some as his signature was getting too scrawly. Yeah. Does this mean Richard is signing pages that are bound into books later, or is Richard taking delivery of thousands of books at a time to sign?
Yeah, it would be, but I think for maybe the 4th Thursday Medical Club book, I did 48,000. Oh my God. Signings. Later on, if you're going into bookstores and things like that, once the book is out, you sign real books. If you go to a festival and you bring along a book and I can sign it and put your name in it. Before then, the bookshops in America say we'd like 2,000, we'd like 4,000. The bookshops in Australia say they want so many, Waterstone, Smiths, they all want something. And so that year, it added up to 48,000. I've had to slightly cut back. And when that happens, you get sent what are called tip-ins. So you just get huge boxes full of A4 bits of paper, and they have a template on each one which says the name of your book, and you just sign those. So you're signing individual.
And they're cut down later and bound into the book.
They're cut down and heat glued in when all the pages are heat glued in. So long as you do them, a few months in advance, they then get heat glued in. So they're all really signed. It's just, as you say, 48,000 books. It would be, 48,000 bits of paper take up a room, let alone 48,000 books. And it's, I figure I did the maths where if it takes you 5 seconds to sign a book, because I'm quite fast at doing it, if it takes you 5 seconds, that is 66 hours worth of signing, which is signing for 4 hours a day for 16 days straight. And so, as Snake in the Garden said, at one point Ingrid was looking over my shoulder and said, you cannot allow someone to have that in their book because my handwriting was getting so scrawly, and so I had to.
But why are you going insane? When I had to do it, I felt like I was going absolutely insane. Like I bumped into someone I knew in the street and couldn't speak because I couldn't explain what I'd really been doing, which was just writing my own name.
Yeah, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I found a school textbook a couple of years ago when I was at my mum's, and I'd practiced my signature in the front of that, and I just thought, you know what? Be careful what you wish for. The signature is exactly the same, but I was doing 48,000 of them.
I didn't have a signature. I just write my name. I've never had a signature. And my agent said to me, it would be good if you developed a signature. I was like, what now? It's too late. I can't go into bat right now with no signature and just try it out on all these thousands of ones I've got to do.
Not only develop a signature, develop a short one.
Yeah.
That's the key. I know I did feel bad because I try and make them all as because it's a nice gift. But then I bought a copy of the Taffy Brodesser Ackner book, Long Island Compromise, and it happened to be a signed copy. And her signature, a disgrace.
Really?
Which made me feel really good. So that made me feel very. But she's got a long name. So
fair
I get
enough,
that.
yeah.
But no, tip-ins are the thing. During lockdown, you couldn't even get tip-ins. So you'd have tiny, tiny little bits of paper like boxes full of these things that were sort of the size of panini cards that you'd have to sign. And that made me feel ill, because at least with like, you know, a bit of A4, you can you can move them about and you can sign. But that was like kind of, you've got all these, and you have to repack every single one of them
really
in the same box it came
them,
from and send it back to America. But it's there's some 48,000. I don't think I do 48,000 before.
Somebody said online
that
they didn't, but said this is too perfect. And I was like, I'm so sorry.
Your signature was too perfect.
And I said, by the way, this has been printed. And I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you go and get yourself a drop of water and smear it down, and that ink will run.
Yeah.
And then they came back and apologised.
Yes. God, well done.
But I was like, I'm sorry, having done it, I'm not going to have the accusation that it's been printed.
Oh, I need to take a look at one. Have you ever signed a book for me?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Possibly.
Yeah. Typed it. Typed your name, got like a robot to do it, like an AI signature.
Well, no, there are those robot arms. I think Margaret Atwood has one.
Yes.
You know, where you write it on she's signing in one
Canada.
Time zone, and it's coming out at the other end. So it is sort of her writing it, but it's coming via, you know, some wonderful technology. And, you know, someone's satellites, that's probably not very nice.
If it's just those A4 bits of paper, you just sit there and do it by yourself. If it is books, you go into a bookshop, or just before Christmas last year, I signed 3,000 books for independent bookshops because it's just before Christmas is a great time for them. And then you actually need a team of people, because you need someone to flap the book, that is to put it to the page where you're supposed to be signing it, someone to pass it from here, someone to pack it someone to unpack it from a massive box, someone to flap it, someone to pack it in another massive box, and then people to take that massive box away. But in that, even then, you can do like 1,000 an hour if you really
and that,
go for
ladies
it.
and gentlemen, is literature.
That's literature. Marina Jess CB has a question for you. In both rugby codes, the refs are mic'd up. In T20 cricket, some fielders are also mic'd up, and commentators refer to what they've heard on stump mic. I would love to listen to player interaction. So why do you think there has never been a red button option to listen to a mic live in football? Is this due to a lack of demand, too much financial or logistical need, or because the sport would not allow it?
The number one reason is because of swearing. You can hear it and obviously in the US games are different. Also, the crowd noise is different. You know, they're singing, you know, fight and win and let's go Chiefs and stuff like that. You know, like none of our chants. They're constantly having, if anything gets picked up, you're constantly apologising for what's happened at football as it is.
Yeah.
The pandemic was very difficult because obviously there were no crowds, and although having said that, if you didn't put the fake crowd noise on, who are you?
It was so haunting.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was really dark. I had to have a fake crowd. Okay. It's interesting. So there's lots of different reasons. The Players' Union doesn't want it. You have acknowledged, Jess, that it would probably be for swearing reasons, because you would hear so much swearing. But it doesn't matter, because the tabloids would just sit on the red button feed, and then you'd get 10 stories a day about what people were saying to each other, how they were interacting.
It's the same reason all the players put their hands in front of their mouth when they talk to each other now.
Because
it's not just tactics. It's literally they're talking about something that they don't want in the Daily Express. And
that's the reason that the Players' Union doesn't want it. However, there are alternatives. We've almost got this one artefact that's really fascinating, which is in the 2018 Cup final, PGMOL, the match officials body, and the Premier League allowed the footage to be from Michael Oliver, who was the referee, from his mic, and they gave it to NBC in the US. They introduced this sort of thing as a kind of historic, like, this is really interesting. And you can still see it on YouTube, but this is from 2018. It's the only clip we have like this. So we don't really know what you would hear apart from this one thing. And I was watching it again, and it's really interesting. Okay. Basically, it's Chelsea Man United. Eden Hazard is fouled, in my view, by Phil Jones.
That's never found
Anyway,
not in a million years.
Yeah, okay. But you hear what Michael Oliver is here, and from his mic as well. And the audio is like, people are shouting, "Dogso, Dogso," which means denying of his goal scoring opportunity. Then he's saying, "Not now, not now." Then all this, you can hear all the assistants coming in. I mean, this would be crazy if you were listening to this in every moment.
He's got an earpiece, has he? And he's hearing all of this.
You're hearing what he's hearing.
Wow.
But I tell you what you're not hearing, because there's a point where he's saying, I want to talk to Gary. I want to talk to Gary Cahill. And you can hear what he's saying to the players on the pitch. You can see their body language. Maybe they're saying cordially, "I'm so sorry. I wonder if you wouldn't mind that going to VAR." Maybe they're saying that. And he's saying, it goes to VAR anyway. And so you're thinking, but you can't hear anything the players say. Now, that is a conscious choice. If it's that's been stripped out.
Yes, because it would have been picked up on the ref's mic, so they do have that audio.
Believe me, because you can see the body language and everyone's like squaring up and it's a whole big thing. And obviously it's a very, very big decision. It's a cup final and it was the only, it ends up being the only goal. It's the only time, I don't fully know the story. Presumably they thought, let's just see what people think. But they've given it to another country's broadcast.
Because in America, they often mic up umpires. It's historically a thing. And so I imagine they said, is there any way we could do this? And they were like, look, you're the rights holder over there, but this goes nowhere. This doesn't, for example, end up on YouTube.
Yeah. By the way. Anyway, watch it on YouTube because it's really interesting. It's like, but it's so chaotic and there's so many different inputs.
Yeah.
The thing I would conclude by saying, Jess, is that honestly, I don't know about you, but I don't want to hear any more from referees in the game. I want to hear less. I want to hear less from VAR.
I certainly don't want to hear from the players.
No. Well, I mean, actually, I would find that great fun.
Because live, you get to hear it. If you sit anywhere near the pitch, you do get to hear what they're saying, and they're just like a match full of that.
No, but I don't want to hear any more from referees, video assistant or otherwise, or assistant in any form. I just
we've had enough of experts, right?
It is a curiosity and it is fascinating. And out of the game, not while I was actually watching it and trying to see a live event, but afterwards it is fascinating to hear what was going, as part of the analysis, it could be very interesting. But I don't think as a sort of unmoderated and just as live red button feed, it would be either safe or desirable. And it's certainly not desirable for the players.
They'd mic up golfers sometimes, and that has the opposite thing, which is mainly they're not talking to each other at all. And if they are talking to each other, it's a player saying to the caddy, "Who's still getting to that pasta that we had yesterday? I think there's some. Can you heat it up? Can you heat up bolognese? Is that all right? You can heat it up, can't you? I'm not going to get food poisoning." "Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or we could go out, couldn't we?" "Oh, there's it's literally that for 6 hours." Because of course we get the VAR chat with referees like a month after the game now, just to keep everyone honest.
It's like the 30-year rule in government papers. Once no one can care about this anymore, although they still can, obviously, then we finally allow you to see it.
Yeah, it's clever because like 19 other things have upset you in the meantime.
Here is one for you about former Noel Edmonds sidekick, Mr Blobby. Richard from Paul Minns. After watching Mr Blobby's appearance on Michael McIntyre's Big Show the other week, it got me wondering about this pink agent of chaos. Is Mr Blobby always played by the same person? Who owns the IP? Does Noel Edmonds receive some kind of royalty each time the Blobmeister is on TV?
In terms of his TV appearances, you can hire Mr Blobby suits and all sorts of things. So you yourself can be Mr Blobby if you want. Yeah. I mean, mainly knockoffs because Noel would be across that, but you can do it. But in terms of TV appearances, there's been 2 Blobbies. Barry Killerby was the original Blobby. He's the Blobby who was around in the golden days, and he was a Shakespearean actor, Barry Killerby. But he helped, put that the physicality of the character, all that sort of thing. He said about it, people think it's easy bouncing around and just saying Blobby, but they should try it.
Also, feel free not to, because if everyone did it, the world would be a more irksome place.
He retired in 2012, retired from the role of playing Bobby and passed it on to Paul Denson. So if you see him on TV or on YouTube or anything now, it is Paul Denson in that. As to who owns the IP, it's slightly difficult to tell. It's owned by Unique Entertainment, which was Noel's business, which wound up in 2005. Knowing Noel as I do, having worked with Noel as I have, anybody is making a single penny from Mr Blobby these days, it is Noel. He will still have his hand very much in that Blobby costume, that's for sure. Noel still owns it. There's a comedy writer called Charlie Adams who helped come up with it with Noel. But yeah, it's always been under Noel's aegis. So 2 people have played him famously, and the profits are very much going down to Noel's New Zealand farmstead, where he now lives, and where ITV are about to do a 3-part documentary.
I'm so excited about this particular...
Noel's New Life.
Noel's New Life in New Zealand.
Listen, we will talk about that at length when it comes out.
When that comes out.
We really will. But Mr Blobby, just been 2 Blobbies. It's not like Doctor Who or something. They really, really pass it down the generations. We've got time for one final question. I think we have. Pat McColgan asked, the first Shrek 5 trailer dropped. Yes, I've seen a lot about this. Consensus is the animations look quite different and not in a good way. The consensus being this is owing to 15 years of CGI improvements since Shrek 4. How do animation studios juggle fan expectations with tech advancements? And is there precedent for animated sequels reverting to older style animation styles to align with previous installments?
Well, in general, there is, it never goes lo-fi again. It just always advances. But someone at Dreamworks says that it's been updated because it matches the sort of Puss in Boots style. Which is the
that makes sense, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the wisdom of that, I'm not quite sure. So that's why the characters feel more angular and cartoony. Well, I mean, as we've discussed, it'll be interesting to see whether they stick with it because they can tweak everything. As we've already talked about before in this podcast about what happened when the Sonic movie, the trailer, it was so poorly received.
Cats.
They hated it. And actually they redid the whole thing and it became an absolutely monster hit. So they might, Cats, obviously, but I mean, that remained not a monster.
Issues, yeah.
That remained not a monster hit.
It's fascinating that they would take it back to Puss in Boots. I mean, you would think
because it's
that
not...
that Shrek's the bigger franchise, but...
It's incredible how stupid very, very intelligent people can be. I have to say. I mean, we'll have to see where that goes because it's a much beloved franchise. Children come to it all the time because obviously these films do better than anything on streaming.
Shrek. Oh yeah, like crazy.
And yeah, so we'll have to see how that one plays out. But we'll watch that because I think something will happen there. You might very well find that they adapt after that trailer.
Yeah, because Mr Blobby still looks like he did all those years ago. So listen, there's a precedent. If it works for Blobby, surely it's going to work for Shrek.
Come on, Dreamworks. Do you not know anything about Crinkly Bottom?
Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions. A pleasure as always. Bonus episode tomorrow, part 2 about the Ryan Murphy story. Feel free to join our club if you wish on therestersentertainment.com, but I look forward to listening to that. Thank you for the questions, Marina. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much.
Pleasure as always, and see you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.